Corruption has been heightened in recent days in Kenya, or so it will seem, from dramatic scenes of suspects in the NYS scandal being dragged to court to the president's plan to have heads of procurement in government vetted using, among other methods, lie detectors. But conspicuously absent, again we'll think, in all this renewed drive is the body solely mandated to fight corruption, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. Many are now wondering whether the new strategy is to deliberately sideline the commission. Tonight, Deputy CEO of EACC, Michael Mubea, is joining us. Thank you for making time for us tonight. And lawyer George Keith is also with us tonight. Send us your views on 22422. On Twitter is the hashtag Sunday Live. We are asking you, is the new anti-graft strategy, do you think it's designed to deliberately sideline EACC? We'll take a look at your feedback very briefly, a sample. Right, we have Abala Kinyua, who's saying the EACC is a toothless commission wasting taxpayers' money and doing nothing. The commission must be disbanded and have DCI, NIS and ODPP take charge of investigating and prosecution of corruption or corruption-alleged cases. Then we have Kalwa CFC. EACC should be disbanded and more powers given to DPP office. EACC has been manipulated by cartels. Mubea is here. We'll try and respond to some of those things. Moana, she says him and the CEO, talking about the deputy CEO and the CEO, have been at EACC welcoming new commissioners in all the clips. I think it's time we change the secretariat. We have Sangure. Yes, definitely all signs are visible. In short, the president is stepping in due to failure by this body. I'm sorry, but most Kenyans believe it's a compromise commission. In fact, it should be disbanded. That's about 4 people saying that. Of course, we've also had others before in the earlier break saying it is important that EACC is supported. And I begin with that question to you, Mubea. A lot of movement in the war against graft over the last 2 weeks. We've not seen much publicly from EACC.
Let me, Hussein, begin by saying that EACC is not sidelined. The war against corruption has been fought by all. We have a multi-agency team that comes together, which comprises of the DCI, the EACC, the ODPP, the KRA, and all of them. So the strategy is that all institutions must come together and fight or counter the challenge of corruption. I want to draw your memory back to this first NYS, like it's now being referred to. Who began with that scandal?
EACC?
No, as we came later.
Oh, it was DCI actually.
It was reported to the DCI.
Yes. The
DCI investigated, but along the way there were matters directly touching on EACC, and we came on board. Even right now, as we have begun the investigation, you'll soon see EACC seriously involved in the investigation.
Okay.
I want to say also that, address those people who are they don't know what EACC does, the successes of the commission. I refer you to the annual report of 2017-2018. In that annual report, the asset recoveries, disruptions, were 7.8 billion Kenya shillings. You need to look at the annual report itself. These are reports that we prepare annually. We
asset recoveries in terms of the amounts recovered
the amounts corruption. Preserved in court, the amounts disrupted, they all amounted.
That's a huge figure.
It's a huge figure, 7.8 billion.
It is
in 1 year. It's in the annual report.
Which year are we talking about?
2016, 2017.
Okay.
We are now in 2017, we are now in 2018,
2019 financial year.
Heading to that year.
2017, 2018.
Yeah.
But I mean that's a huge figure.
Yes.
I mean, and congratulations to EACC, although it's your job. With due respect, however, looking at that figure, isn't it shocking that there's no corresponding big people locked in or behind bars, yet you have recovered all this money? And that is what people are not seeing. That's what people are talking about. Okay,
I answer you this way. EACC is an investigative body. Prosecution is done by another independent office, the office of the DPP.
Based on the evidence gathered by EACC.
Precisely. In fact, the decision to charge or not to charge is done by the DPP.
Right.
EACC collects the evidence.
And prepares the case.
DPP analyzes the evidence. He is satisfied with the sufficiency of evidence, and then he makes a decision, charge these people. We have another body, the adjudicators. That is the judiciary. So the war against corruption involves all these entities. Now, many times are being asked by people, EACC, why are you not jailing people? Hussein, we don't jail people. We investigate, we recommend, and I will tell you this.
Yes.
we always come up with watertight cases. And as we speak now, between July 2017 and now, we have had 40 convictions. 40 convictions.
Okay.
So I think people are talking out of ignorance, not so much out of information.
Okay, but here now, Judge Kitty, I'm coming to you shortly.
Yes.
Here now, you're talking about watertight cases.
Yes.
EACC's role is gathering evidence.
Yes.
Investigating as well. So whatever case DPP is presenting to the court emanates from investigations carried out by EACC. So if that case fails because of investigations or because of lack of evidence, who is to blame? Because you're saying that, you just told me, the cases you present are watertight. Case in point, NYS 1, as is being called now, about 24 acquittals. I mean, you had a role there in terms of gathering evidence. Doesn't that concern you?
Now,
you think you're presenting watertight cases?
Allow me to answer you this way. That is one case where 23 suspects were acquitted. The DPP and ourselves...
And it's a fact that this money was stolen.
Yes. The DPP and ourselves, we are convinced we have a good case. And the DPP has appealed to the High Court. And my colleague will tell you, it's not even yourself you can go to court, you lose in the first round, but that does not mean you had a weak case. It means the judiciary was wrong and you are offered another opportunity to go and argue your case. So that case is in the High Court through the appeal. Right. And it is a good case, I can tell you.
Although the judiciary says, when these questions are asked, it's a ping-pong game we get between EACC, DPP, judiciary. Judiciary says, we will rule on the cases based on the evidence presented. I'll get Kitty's response to that first.
Thank you. I think that respects to it. Yes, it is true that EACC at a point disengages on account of the fact that after investigation, then it commits the rest of the procedures illegal as set out in law to other institutions. But of course, that doesn't mean that the evidence should not be one that then proves the ultimate culpability of the suspect. However, I think one respect in which EACC fails is in the manner in which it engages the public. Fact remains, and those of us who are in court day in, day out know that there are specialized courts, than corruption courts that administer or adjudicate on these matters. And if you go to court from Monday to Friday, there'll be set out judgments where convictions and acquittals are set out. Those are not things that are paraded before the public, for the public to be able to digest on their successes and failures. If that whole anatomy was presented, for instance, today or a day that then it explains the public what it has done, that would be complementary to the roles that it plays. So public communication becomes key. And communication, because I think the fight against corruption is more about the deterrence aspect. One is, an example is set out on a person who has gone through those procedures and the suffering that the person has been committed. Being in the sense that you see, once you do not gain out of a corrupt transaction, it means therefore ultimately there will be no use of engaging into it. That is the deterrence aspect, and there can't be deterrence without communication. But the second aspect to it is, I do believe that what the public, in the sense of justice of a Kenyan, is not necessarily the jailing of a person. I believe it is the recovery. Because what people know is that the taxes must ultimately be able to serve them. So I think we should then be able to focus ultimately more on the recoveries, because you see, the loss on the public funds, that is the money that is misused, is what is painful to the Kenyan. So the ultimate, I think, transaction that I think a foremost a Kenyan expects from EACC, and the satisfaction is that money has been recovered. But
doesn't it shock you that money is recovered and nobody is being jailed?
The matrix, it's a whole matrix.
I mean, for you to recover money, you're recovering it from people who are corrupt.
Yes.
How else would you recover money? And I hope you explain that. How else would you recover money? It's obviously from people who are corrupt, yet those people are walking scot-free.
Yes, you see.
Not all of them, some of them.
You see, there's a dual approach to it. One is a civil approach, where then you need to freeze or recover. That is the recovery process. The other one is a complementary process where then, apart from the evidence that recovery is being done, where the legal processes are different, in fact, the proof standards of proof are very different, a person then has to go through the court system. What would be expected from a Kenyan would be that the mere fact that you'll be able to freeze and restitute or take the assets back or the money, then it means there's enough evidence for conviction. That will be seen to be easy, but ultimately the standards of proof will be very different. And remember that a person who has gone through a corrupt processes and transaction has the wherewithal within which to fight in the process. The process in itself can be corrupt. So you are dealing with a person who is corrupt, is taken through a legal process that in itself can be corrupted. So then it becomes cyclic. At all levels? Yes.
Including EACC, including DPP, including...
That is a possibility.
It's a possibility. I want to take a look at what President Kenyatta said 2 days ago. That was Madaraka Day in Meru. His speech, very strong on corruption. Let's just hear what he said.
Almost the entire senior team in charge of investigations and prosecutions today is new. And they have been properly resourced. They know their mandate and mission, and they know what Kenyans expect. The Director of Public Prosecutions, the police and other institutions in the multi-agency team against corruption are on the move. And they are making decisive steps to build strong cases for the prosecution of corrupt officials.
That speech, most of it, talked about corruption.
Yes.
He's talked about DCI, he's talked about DPP, he's talked about new people being brought on board to fight corruption. All these bodies deal with other things other than corruption. Your body deals with corruption. Isn't it shocking? And this is what some are looking at, an indication that EACC is being sidelined in the war against graft. That a whole speech during Madaraka Day, very strong on corruption, not a single mention of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission.
Hussein, I beg to differ because I listened very keenly to what the president said. He said the DCI or the DPP and the police and all agencies and multi-agencies. One, we are police. If you didn't know, that's why we have police powers to arrest and all that. And number two, we are in the MAT. And I also want to educate you on
multi-agency team.
Multi-agency team.
Yeah.
Yeah. And all of them are preparing. You have heard him say, are preparing watertight cases for prosecution. Now, let me tell you something you don't know. Since the new DPP came into office, we have forwarded 47 files for prosecution, recommending prosecution of various people. Those files are with the DPP. We expect the DPP to be finalizing with those files in the next few days, and you'll be seeing another wave of massive arrests. And these files include even the high-profile people. So the war against corruption is on. EACC is leading the war.
That EACC was not mentioned, it does not bother you. That he said, for example, not once or twice, that he has brought in a new DCI head and DPP to actually tackle graft, and have been given special directions on how to ensure they meet Mwananchi's expectations in fighting corruption. Does not show you, it's not an indication.
My interpretation of what the president said is very simple. One, the DPP is new, so he needs fresh instructions. The DCI is new, needs fresh instructions. EACC is not new, we have the instructions. And we have had those instructions.
George, do you feel?
Yes.
What I think he's trying to say is the places that needed fixing are there, not theirs. But I think that's probably what the Kenyan out there thinks. So what
that they are being sidelined.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think it is an issue that needs to be explained away in this sense that what has been marketed as the leader of fight against corruption is EACC through and through.
It's there.
But then what we are seeing now is probably a shift. An emphasis is being probably given and laid to the doors of DCI and the DPP.
Who have other mandates.
Yes, that's why we've seen the comments that are coming out from Kenyans that probably EACC is being sidelined, and there's then an issue of confidence. Is that the issue that we're dealing with?
And even conflict.
Yes, but I do think that initially the complaints that we've had, in fact, the friction that we've had is between DPP and EACC, where they didn't seem to agree in terms of what needs to be prosecuted and what doesn't need to be prosecuted. Because in some instances, yes, files are taken to the DPP for his action. And remember, without the consent of DPP for prosecution can take place. In fact, it's one of the issues that we lawyers do raise in court. So it is important that the synergy is driven and railroaded to one direction, that all agencies, and that's why there was a formation of multi-agency, the way I look at it, towards ensuring that there's a smooth flow of the prosecution. The only multi-agency, the only institution that has not been brought for obvious reasons will probably the judiciary, which plays a key role. The judiciary ultimately makes the decision. So I think what we need to look at eventually is investigation being done, is prosecution being done. And I think that is the scorecard of the multi-agency. Since then, it has been put into a composite institution. I want to listen to one more soundbite. You'll speak shortly. This was an interview we did last week here on Citizen. That was a big question show with John Gidongo, Anti-Corruption Crusade, and this is what he had to say. Yeah.
When I was involved in the Anglo-leasing investigations in the early 2000s, the most progress was made when that case was being investigated by the police. By the police? By the police. Police, because they know where the bodies are buried. If they feel they have political cover, they can make progress. I'm not saying, I am not sure this is what is happening, but my own memory, I remember the most progress was made by police. The moment it was taken over by what was called the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, things ground to a halt.
Respond to that, Mubea.
I would respond this way, that things did not grind to a halt, because one case that I seriously investigated was the Anglo-leasing as soon as I joined the commission. And we had to collect a lot of evidence which passed through various jurisdictions, including America, Switzerland, and all over. And I'm sure this is a matter that you seriously covered in the, through the media. And the suspects are facing trial in court. So the progress was made. Maybe that was his experience at the time. I may not comment because I was not there. But from where I sit, we made serious progress to a point of arraigning the suspects in court. Allow me, let's not lose lose the debate in the war against corruption. Right now, the focus is EACC being sidelined. I mean, we are losing
the focus.
The focus. The focus is all institutions must come together and fight corruption. And I'll tell you, it's not just the law enforcement agencies. Even other agencies must come and join the fight. I'll tell you, in Kenya today, what we are dealing with, we have lost the morals. And I keep sharing, and I think the last time I was here, I shared this case with you. It was a sad case that we investigated, where this mother who had a sick child, who was seen by the doctor, and the doctor diagnosed, and the child needed urgent blood transfusion, but the child would not get blood because a medical officer needed to be bribed with 3,000 Kenya shillings. It's a case we had to investigate. To the greater public, it will be seen like a petty case, but look at it from the moral sense. How would you be asking for a bribe to give or to administer blood to a child on the verge of death? EACC is fighting corruption in several ways, and these are the strategies we are applying. One is law enforcement, and this is what we are talking about. We have another more serious one, which is called preventive mechanism. I'll give an example. The first NYS investigations that we did the investigations. After that, we realized that NIS was ailing and needed an audit systems review. We moved in, did a systems review, generated a detailed report in 2015, and remitted that report to the government for implementation. If that had been implemented, we'll not be talking about.
But it wasn't.
Now,
but it wasn't. And again, from your own words, you say, for example, NYS 1, NYS 2. We're talking about huge sums of money. Allegedly stolen. You're saying the first one was reported to the DCI first, which is a fact. It's the same thing again now. Some would ask, why are you not proactive enough to know about such cases, that you know about them from the DCI, sometimes from the media, yet you are the body that is supposed to do this?
EACC, we have an intelligence mechanism for collecting information, and one of them is the media. We collect reports through the media, and the media, I must commend them, they do a very good job. EACC, as we speak now, even today as I was watching news down there, there's another scandal in NIB. I mean, they are breaking every now and then. This is why we are saying under the multi-agency team, we need other institutions to come on board so that together we can actually counter the challenge.
You're saying cannot do this alone?
We cannot do it alone. And this is why I said, I'm not saying that the EACC is incompetent or is not, does not have the necessary tools, but we are saying the magnitude of the work, we need more people on board. And this is why other institutions, and I wanted to tell, I wanted to go into the issue of like the faith sector. Today, I went to a church where the pastor was preaching about Christians actually repenting, coming back to God, living right. Because if they are living right, of course the issues of corruption will not be there. Okay. Now, therefore, the fight against corruption must be taken a notch higher. Not just law enforcement, we must go further than that.
We all hope for that.
Yes.
In any ideal situation, but sadly we don't live in an ideal world, and this is what is happening, and that is why we have EACC. I'll read one text here as I ask you another question here. Njogu on Twitter says, 40 convictions, yes, talking about the convictions he talked about. But then he says, small-time convictions. Who was jailed for Mafia House, that is Mafia House, NYS episode 1? Then he's asking, are you talking about traffic policemen? Because we see that a lot. And these people are convicted. And we see them getting convicted. And this is actually the frustration with Kenyans. They're not seeing that in terms of high-profile people. They are not seeing that from EACC. Can you deny that?
Now, I reiterate what I said earlier, that EACC, we investigate, we recommend, and we support the prosecution. The court process is slow. My brother will tell you, the court process is very slow. It's beyond our control. But there are serious convictions that are coming. And I want to remind the Njogu. Just the other day they were talking about Gakuo and the former PS. There's I think a month ago there was another serious conviction where people were convicted and fined 18 million. So I also want you to correct the public on one thing. When we always talk about high profile. And we are the commission, I mean the people who fight corruption, we always differ. What is high profile? For the public out there, they think high profile is a cabinet minister, is a governor. But I'll tell you, corruption, going by our own research, is right in the middle. It is bad. The figures are alarming. They are worrying.
That is for sure.
We have undertaken investigations where we are finding very middle class people with massive properties.
That is for sure. But
now,
they are hoping to see these high-profile people, action being taken against them, so that it will deter the middle level and all the others from doing anything. They feel, rightly so, I feel too, that there's impunity because if you're seeing people in high office and get away with such stuff, the rest can just do it. There's no problem. That is their frustration.
I agree with you, and I'm telling you that there are many high-profile matters that are ongoing in court. We have several governors. I don't know whether you know.
I know.
Former governors.
I was coming to that.
Yeah, who are in court.
And I was coming to that.
There are former CSs who are in court.
Yes.
Fighting their battles in court. They are fighting their battles in court.
Now that you mentioned that, yes. I wanted Judge Kithi to comment on this, but he'll comment after this clip. Yeah. Now that you mentioned that, President Uhuru Kenyatta talked about this. This, I think, was a year and a half ago, if I'm not wrong, 2016. Yeah, 2016. Let's listen to what he said. 2016 October, actually.
Wewe wako wewe, ulinisimamisha hapo mbele ya bunge, nikafuta mawaziri na nani ambao sasa wananilaumu, they hate me, wengine wana campaign against me, na wewe ndio uliniambia hii watu wako mpaka wa leo, this is 2 years. Hujaniambia where their guilt is.
I don't know what the president feels now. It's 4 years, not 2 years anymore. It's 4 years now. I think you're saying you must realize that we gave an update on what happened at this point, because all these matters were fully investigated and all of them were completed. Some were cleared, some were charged, because that's how it goes.
No conviction yet?
No, there have been some convictions.
But from the cabinet secretaries, you haven't seen any convictions yet? From
the cabinet secretary, there is one case, there is one former cabinet secretary who is still fighting it. The case has not been heard. And this goes back to what I am saying, that the court process, we have to go back to the court process. There is what is within our control. For saying that this must be understood very clearly. There is what is within our control, and there is what is not within our control. George will tell you, when he is acting for a client, one of the things he will do is think of every technical application he can file to frustrate the hearing of a criminal case against his.
And you've gone through that for years, right?
Yes.
You've gone through that for years as EACC.
I will tell you, these agro-leasing cases, agro-leasing cases, for them to be finalized, they took so long because of court orders that were in place, and they were a major impediment to successful conclusion of the investigation.
Going by that experience and how you know it and what you have learned, have you tried to advise through legal mechanisms on how to avoid these pitfalls, because they keep happening over and over again? If it's something you're facing as a challenge, have you tried to address it in any way? Because it keeps happening.
Yes, I'll tell you. I've just shared with you 40 convictions within a period of less than 1 year. Why has that been so? We had to engage judiciary, because previously we didn't have a specialized anti-corruption court. We engaged judiciary. Judiciary established an anti-corruption court in the lower court for hearing these matters. Now these applications were being filed in the High Court, where there was no such a specialized court. Again, we went back to the then Chief Justice, sharing with him our frustrations and recommending the establishment of a High Court division that was to deal with these matters. That was done. So today we have a High Court division that handles anti-corruption matters. And it is for this reason that in 1 year we are talking about 40 convictions. And as we progress, I'll tell you, Hussein, and I can assure the public, as we progress, you will see high-profile convictions, because we are on the right track.
Okay, that is what the public wants to see still.
Yes.
Kitty, he seems to put a lot of emphasis on the problems in the judiciary. What do you think, being a lawyer dealing with the judiciary?
Well, I do think that the judiciary, yes, has its fair share of blame. But I think justice is justice. Every application before court, everything that's before court has to be dealt with as is. And therefore, I think the question as to the timelines, why conviction should be or should not be seen, is dependent on each individual case. The sum total of, I think, this narrative would be, when was EACC established, and the historical aspect as to whether we've had high-profile conviction or not is what should be, probably is being questioned by the Kenyan. And why is the Kenyan talking about high-profile conviction? You see, leadership is symbolic in nature. So then if leadership is corrupt, it directs, it rallies the public to a certain direction. Put it the other way, if we look at a positive note, if the public is rallied to planting trees, we did plant trees, we're still planting trees. If the public today is rallied against corruption, as the president has taken it up against himself, he will do it. But then there is the actual doing, the act of a servant, a public servant who is high profile, tolerating, planning, and executing a corrupt transaction. Now, that is what the Kenyans are talking about. Where are the results that then demonstrate? Because it is obvious that this is planned and executed from a high profile.
Right.
Where is that?
Does that frustrate you yourself?
Well,
being Kenyan and corruption in Kenya?
Yes, it does. It does, because it doesn't give a satisfaction that there's a discharge of responsibility, at least at that level.
Okay.
And I do think that then all sectors must be engaged, including the judiciary, for the reason that, and I'll tell you for free, that representations in court depend again on the profiling. So there's profiling in court too. That a cabinet secretary, the way the cabinet secretary will be received and attended to in court is not the same way that another person or an ordinary person will be dealt with. Obviously, that profiling then is both overt and covert, in the sense that there are certain permissible things that happen. For instance, the way applications are made to block a process or a transaction of hearing a case before a lower court is available to certain people and unavailable to others, depending on wealth, depending on availability of the resources that you get, for instance, the lawyers, and more importantly, it's profile-based. So yes, it is important that all sectors are also engaged.
All right. Well, finally, as we wind up, first, there's an omnibus bill in Parliament which proposes to amend the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions Act to remove EACC from the definition of investigative agencies under the law. This means that if the bill is passed and assented to, the Commission will be left with the work of only enforcing ethics. I don't know what you feel about it.
I don't feel it that way. Okay, one, I don't know. It's just still just a proposal before Parliament. It has to be debated. But the powers to investigate are anchored in the anti-corruption laws, not the ODPP Act.
So, I mean, if this passes, what is your view? If this
we have engaged Parliament ourselves because we are saying it's not a good bill. But we are also saying, because we are alive to this, that even if it was passed, our powers are not affected. We will be more concerned or worried if the EACC powers to investigate and recommend to the DPP matters is taken away. That has not been.
It hasn't happened, but that is among the proposals.
I'm not aware of that proposal.
Okay. Finally, I mean, what would you say is your biggest challenge in fighting corruption? Number one, and are there any big developments we can look forward to from Integrity Center? Because there are promises you've made. In 2016, for example, during the Afia House scandal, you promised to conclude investigations within a month. To date, we have not seen anything.
One of the things I'll be promising Kenyans, or maybe one of the challenges that we face every day, is that Kenyans, and I want to face Kenyans and say, come on board, let us fight corruption. Let us transform our nation into a corruption-free country. It is possible, it is doable. When you're talking about corruption, sometimes I find like people are imagining there's an animal out there called corruption. It is not you and me. Integrity starts with me. And therefore, I urge Kenyans, let us be a people of integrity. Number two, the convictions we had in, I've just shared just now, we can only get better numbers. We have a new DPP, we have a close working relationship with the DPP, with the DCI, we have the MAT framework, which is working quite well, and we are supporting each other very closely. So Kenyans expect great achievements in as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. And I urge all of them to come on board and we fight together. What would you say about the Afia House scandal? Then you promised within a month. I promised within a month. Yes. I do recall quite clearly. But there was one challenge. We are following some monies. In investigations, when they are within the border, they are easier. But when they go outside the country, it becomes difficult because we have to prepare mutual legal assistance to the foreign countries, and the foreign countries, you have no control in as far as how they respond to such. I'll tell you another one. We are facing similar challenges. KPC is an old investigation where some valves were bought at a very inflated price. My team was in Canada the other day. They also went to the US. The process is slow. It's very frustrating. Last month I attended a conference in Senegal, all the anti-corruption bodies in Africa, and we were just sharing our experiences. And I was amazed that Kenya, in as far as the fight against corruption, we are so far. Others are still far behind. But the frustrations remain the same. One, the public does not support the war. Number two, media, you are very good when maybe people are being arraigned in court the first day. After that, you withdraw from the scene. I will urge media, let us keep track of these matters. I will say that when there is a conviction, and look at the newspapers, you'll find the conviction is usually a small corner somewhere where people don't even notice. And this is why,
depending on the profile of the person who's being convicted, isn't it? And
I've shared with you, and allow me just to emphasize this. The high profile people we are talking about, as far as we are concerned, that is not so. The high profile, in as far as we are concerned, are the people who have opportunities to take advantage of their systems and steal public resources. That is where the problem is.
But do you know about the perception in the country about who's high profile?
That's what we are trying to educate the public on what high profile
I mean,
is.
You point out an interesting fact about the media, that they don't follow the cases after the first moments. We could also say the same about you. If, for example, you're going to promise, or you promise you'll give feedback about the Afia House scandal within a month, and after that you just went quiet.
You can
it also says something about EACC, doesn't it?
You can imagine calling a press conference to tell the public that we are being frustrated, we have done an email.
Isn't that better to explain than to just keep mum, because people wanted to see something happen within a month, as you promised?
Perhaps.
It hasn't happened.
Perhaps, maybe, but now we are explaining. That is the challenge we are facing.
Okay.
Yeah, and we hope to...
You have promised, finally, high-profile cases coming to in the coming days or weeks or whatever.
Yes,
we'll see.
Yes.
In what scandals exactly should we expect?
We are looking at the national government, we are looking at the counties, we are looking at the independent constitutional commissions, all of them, because we are dealing with them. Right now, you know, we have scandals in Serious Board, we have KPC, today you're talking about NIB.
How high? When you say high profile, how high up do you
No, allow me not to go beyond there.
Well, I will have to leave it there, but this is a conversation that we'll be having again and again and again. Very important conversation, and thank you for making time for us and for Kenyans to share with them. This is Michael Mubez, the Deputy CEO, Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, and George Keith here, lawyer. Thank you all for making time for us tonight. Keep talking to us. The hashtag is Sunday Live on Twitter. Text us on 22422. Again, we are asking, is a new anti-graft strategy designed to sideline EACC? We're back with the final look at your feedback after this break.